as marketers, we actually use the same techniques that attackers use. And what's important is that how do we distinguish ourselves from the attackers? That's the fear that many people have, is that where is this information coming from and where it's taking us to? Is it malicious?
Welcome to Audience First, a podcast for tech marketers looking to break out of the echo chamber to better understand their audience and turn them into loyal customers. Every week, Danny Wolf has brutally honest conversations with busy tech buyers about what really motivates them, the things they hate that vendors do, and what you can do about it. Get access to practical information on how to build authentic relationships with your audience. Listen to and talk with your buyers, and apply real customer insights to your strategies and tactics. You owe it to the world to unmute your mic. Are you ready?
You talked a lot about security not being technical first, it's people first. And that really resonated with me. That's essentially how I think things should be done from a marketing perspective. It's people first. It's not about the technology.
Technology will change over time, but it's always an enabler for people to be successful in their jobs. That's ultimately, and that's what we're here to support. And
Right.
for me, I'm always a kind of bit, even I'm a researcher, but I'm also working for a vendor. So it's always finding that fine balance. And I think one of the big things for me is, and I think all organizations should have someone like me in their marketing departments to make sure that we stay honest. And that's ultimately
Yeah.
the goal, is to make sure that as you're creating campaigns, and as companies grow, organizations will sometimes make mistakes and put things out there that need to be changed at a later stage once you don't capture it, because organizations will grow very fast, and it's hard to sustain it, and you don't want to stop things from moving forward. You don't want to become another Dr. No in the organization. You want to be how do we do this correctly? So that's what's really important for organizations, to make sure that they do have a strong connection between those who are security researchers and very technical focus and know the industry, and making sure that marketers are not just, because we do have a brand image problem. We have a serious brand image problem that's been created over many years. And I really, there's a new book out from Dr. Victoria Baines, who was talking about, that we need to change our image in security to being much more of a positive, innovative enabler than what has been historically. We've been selling on fear. We scare companies into selling, and that's not the right approach. We should be as enablers of how to make sure that we're helping organizations be successful, how we're helping the employees do their job, how we're helping
Mhm.
organizations reduce risk. And that's ultimately kind of where the message needs to be more focused and channeled, rather than organizations really trying to scaremonger in many cases.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we want to be an industry of inclusivity and diversity. But we have a somewhat, a cyberbullying challenge in our industry as well, where people who don't like when somebody's trying to establish themselves in the industry. A lot
Yeah.
of new people coming in. So that's one thing I think, people behind keyboards and behind screens and social media are sometimes less moral, and, are willing to say things which really they shouldn't. So I think
Mhm.
that's the thing, and you see it all the time. We need more people in the industry. We want this to be an industry where people want to be part of. And I think for me, that's the biggest challenge, is how do we get this to be a cool industry that people want to be in, and including people from all backgrounds. I mean, yes, I'm a technical person. I've been in this a long time, but I definitely see the need for people who have people skills, people who have communication
Mhm.
skills, people who have business skills, people who have different ideas that allow us to, really think about how to be more innovative, how to communicate better with our audience. So this is the thing for me, I think, is, it's not the nice side of the industry when you do have a lot of people in the industry who are very aggressive, have a bad choice of words on social media, and downplay a lot of people who are doing great things.
Mhm. Why did you get into this industry?
Well, I fell into it. I had that's a long story. So I've been in. It's actually getting close to 30 now, surprisingly.
Oh,
So
wow.
I started my career back. I started my education back in '91 in the IT sector. At the same time, I was doing a lot of internships and side jobs in IT support, help desk and training. And for me, I had two career paths. One is it was art, ironically, and the other one was
Hmm.
technical. And I was a big gamer. I've been doing games ever since 7, 8 years old. And back then, when I was doing games, you had to type them in the computer yourself. You didn't get them on anything. It was you wrote it in BASIC, and then you compiled it, and you hoped that it would run. And then you wait another month for the magazine to be released with an update saying we made a mistake in the original code. You need to retype this in. So that was my early life. Was art and gaming, and it was the gaming aspect which really took over. Is one area that I was really really good at, and decided that a career in IT. So the early ten years of my career was doing system administration work, in line with my university studies as well. So I did computer science, I did computer studies. I also did international studies, and I also did a placement in the US for a year for part of my studies. And so that really kind of became the kind of foothold was IT. But it was around 2002 where I then transitioned from being not just a infrastructure and system administrator and help desk side of things. It was 2002 where I really decided to take my career in a new path, which was in security, and that's where
Mhm.
I transitioned into the security industry. So yeah, for a long time, I've seen a lot of different kind of. You see this kind of pendulum swinging every now and again. Um, you know, Early in my career, it was a lot about moving, to deploying things like Windows 95, Windows 3.1, even, and working in DOS. In my early part, working a lot with mainframes. Mainframes were very much, of course, it was the cloud-like scenario. Everything was centralized, and everyone had edge computings and serial cable devices where dumb terminals were connected. And then, of course, we moved much more. The pendulum swung to the endpoint, where we had more power in the endpoints, with laptops and desktops and so forth. But then, of course, the pendulum is swinging back again, back into cloud, and a bit of a hybrid approach as well. So we do see these kind of technology swings, but at the end, what stays the same is the people. Their job slightly changes and the way we deliver things slightly changes. But at the end, we're here. Computers and technology is here to serve people, and we have to remember that people are our customers at some aspect, maybe directly or indirectly. And we have to make sure everything we do is to help them be successful. Make sure that we help them be successful in their jobs. And that's sometimes I wasn't happy. I remember last year when we had Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and I wasn't happy that the main one of the main weeks and themes was cybersecurity first, because it's never first. You don't do security for the sake of security. Security is not the reason why we're here. Security is my skills and expertise and knowledge. I use that expertise and knowledge to help look at business problems, to help look at how people do their job, and then to embed my cybersecurity skills and knowledge into how to make what they do either operationally or what they do in their process or what they do in their job more secure. It's not to make employee security professionals, is to make sure that security works for them. And that's sometimes we lose that sight and vision. And sometimes it's important that we go back and we reset and we remember and we go back to the understanding about why we're here in the first place. So yeah, cybersecurity first was not, you know, it's great if you think, if that is your primary role and primary goal, but it's not first. That's for sure. It's a supporting pillar of the business, of society in general. So
Right.
we have to make sure that we always remember that. Remember why we're here. But yeah, it's our skill set, it's our experience. It's not the goal. It's not first.
What is your ultimate goal that you're trying to achieve these days?
My moral compass is make the world a safer place online and in life. Is to make it a place where everyone has the opportunity to be what they want and be who they want in both personal life and work life. So we want
Mhm.
to be a place that education and knowledge thrives on. My goal is to do what I can in the position I'm in, and to help, whether being all organizations around the world, make sure that they're able to offer services which are more resilient, which are available, and that people can live successful lives from. So yeah, my moral compass is all about doing things ethically and helping make the world a safer place online. And I think that's definitely, whether it being businesses or whether it being citizens or individuals or societies, we all need to have access. We all need to have the same access and the same knowledge that we can share.
In your experience as a practitioner along the way, what has been your number one challenge in doing what you need to do in achieving your goal?
It's a balance because the number one challenge is balancing continuous learning.
Mhm.
If you don't, in our industry, things change so quickly. And if you don't balance enough of your time into the learning part, you can fall very, very quickly behind. And it's also as well about communicating. It's about peers. I know that uh, I specialize in expertise in some areas, but I know I'm not the expert of everything. So it's also about creating a community around you that you've got peers and people who you can go to answer questions. So you don't have to be the expert. So that's one of the things is that yes, it's that continuous learning piece, which is very, very hard to maintain. And if you don't have an aspect of your percentage of what you do in your workplace allocated to continuous learning, you will be fall behind. And it's a challenge because sometimes work takes that priority, but you have to personally allocate time for your continuous learning. And I realize that yes, this is an industry where if you take a year or two and you don't learn, you will already be behind. New
Wow.
technology evolves, it comes out all the time, it updates, it changes. If you look at a book from 3 years ago with the interface and technology, it's already out of date. You would look at the new interface of the software today, and you will not be able to follow those books unless you have exactly the same version. So that's how fast things change.
Wow.
And we as people have to make sure that a good percentage of our time is allocated to continuous learning.
I think that's fascinating given how quickly technology is changing. You always have to kind of stay one step ahead of the game. I want to shift this
Mhm,
question into two parts right now. It's a little bit off the talking points that we originally discussed, but it's no surprise that there are hordes of vendors out there,
mhm,
right? And when you're evaluating a security product, that is a challenge in and of itself. So I'll split this question into
mhm,
two parts. You talked about continuous learning, and yesterday I had an interesting conversation with a gentleman about educating security buyers,
mhm.
and he stated, "There's no way in hell I'm going to teach something to you or a Chris Roberts or an Alan Alford, something that they already know. I mean, there's no way I'm gonna teach them that." How do you propose vendors help you learn new things that you didn't know before? Because there's just hordes of mediocre information out there that they're pushing to you for attention. How do you propose they do that in order to get, to help you and in order to get your attention?
I mean, what it really comes down to, I think, is that they have to understand that there's multiple audiences,
Yeah.
and depending on which audience, you will, tailor your explanation and information to that audience. And for me, I'm always I will always learn things. I wouldn't say there's nothing that I couldn't learn or find new. It really comes down to how they explain it to me. I can always get, in a specific area, I can get a new perspective on something from a different kind of viewpoint. Because when we're in technology, of course, we have our preferred viewpoint and we look at things, and sometimes you need to sometimes look at it from a different person's angle. So those things, if they can, provide that type of kind of context to me, there's always an opportunity for me to learn. I think it really comes down to is for the likes of me, um, remove the FUD, remove the fluff from it, and really explain to me what are you really doing technology wise. I think that's the audience that for the likes of me. And I used to do one of the things I used to do was one of my roles for investors would ask me to go and walk the conference halls of major events, whether it being RSA or Black Hat or whatever it is. And they would ask me to walk the halls, basically walk through, take a look at the vendors, and try to see through the marketing message to what the real thing is in the background. What technology do they really have, and is it something of value? So we used to do this thing was basically the vendor hall bingo, and you would have basically FUD technology, uh, opportunity, and you would go down and you basically would put them all into these different buckets. And I think it really comes down to is just for the audience like myself, don't try to sell me fear. Don't try to sell me on 10 minutes of my time to do an elevator pitch. Um, Explain just simply what it is you're doing and what problem you're solving from a technology perspective. That's what I look at. I look at really how it works underneath. And then it allows me to really understand about what's category that I kind of put it into and whether there's something that's unique that that vendor's providing that adds value. So this is sometimes, and it really comes down to a lot of times, if you go to companies' websites, it's really hard to see through the message to clearly what
Mhm.
it is that's been done, and how it's been done. And that really then allows you to see, is it something that becomes, because what's really important is how easy it is to deploy, how easy it is to use, how easy it is to integrate. Um, and also moving from one of the big things I have is around, we've been in the industry of technical debt. We've been doing, we've been in an industry where we will get one tool that does one thing. And rather than thinking, I think it was looking forward to more strategic decisions about how do we future proof technology? How do we make sure that decisions we make today are flexible enough to change for the business and elasticity where they can actually grow with the business in the future as well? So we really need to, and of course the pandemic has forces into that as well because we've had to make short-term decisions very quickly, sometimes with limited budgets, but we really need to move and shift our way to thinking about how do we future proof. And that's what I'm looking at as always, before even, you know, putting a technology or product into my radar, you want to have hands on as well. You want to, it's like a test driving a car. You're never just going to
Mhm.
buy a car basically based on the pamphlet and the technology kind of specifications. You're always going to take it for a test drive, and that's what's really important as well. So yeah. So for my type of audience is, and we get this so often. I'm pretty sure Chris and Alan and others, um, is we are the target of a lot of marketers in regards to email campaigns, and uh, it gets sometimes really frustrating because you see the same repetitive type of technique and message over and over again. You know, I want to explain how phishing will benefit or security awareness, or can I have 10 minutes of your time to explain this? And just like before you get before you even get 10 minutes of my time, you want to actually explain to me first about what it is you do. And then you have to earn my 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You don't get it basically. I mean, giving me a $50 voucher for whatever to 10 minutes of my time, it's not worth my time and I won't do that. What I want is I want to be educated. I want to,
Mhm.
and if you're not going to teach me something in that first email, you're not going to get my time. You're not gonna
Yeah.
get any allocation. That email that you send will be basically straight into the trash bin. So it's all about important about knowing your audience and making sure that your message is clear to that audience. And if it is somebody technical like myself, you want to already be earning my trust and earning my time in that first communication. Uh,
Mhm.
Others, of course, you'll have others who are more into the business side of things and looking for other types of communication. So they want to understand about what business value you're providing. Um, if you're targeting the operational system administration team, you want to understand about how much time you're saving them to get back, so they can do other things which they're busy doing. They want to automate. They want to do things much more integrated. So really, my message to marketers is know your audience and tailor your message to those specific audiences with the value that they get out of it,
Mhm.
rather than just going with this blanket statement and doing mass emailing against everybody with the same message. You're just going to upset more people than that what you're going to provide value to.
You have all these security professionals weary of clicking on links and not even accessing email because they don't know who the hell is sending it to them. There's a lot of spam. Is it dead?
It's not dead. It's just not the only one that's primarily used as
Yeah.
much. It's still heavily used. Of course, you've got other means of social media platforms. You've got other means of campaigns. But we also, as security practitioners as well, when you receive, I hate this thing where we really get into where we fear things of links, um, and we just have to understand about the implications and impact. Is before before you click on a link, you want to do your research to make sure you understand about where this is coming from, and you might want to then decide that, well, if I'm going, this looks suspicious, I will not click in it in a main system. I will move it over to a sandbox and see what happens. We're security professionals that, yes, we shouldn't be afraid of QR codes. We should understand where the QR code's taking us. So putting out link. I mean, we have to, as marketers, we actually use the same techniques that attackers use. And what's important is that how do we distinguish ourselves from the attackers? How do we separate ourselves? And of course, we had to provide much more trusted sources, ways that they can go and self-verify where the source is coming from, alternative means of going to the information you're providing. So yes, it's attackers will use the same techniques as marketers, and
What
that's
Mhm,
that's the fear that many people have is that where is this information coming from and where it's taking us to? Is it
mhm.
malicious?
What are those alternative means that marketers can use to give you access to information easily?
The alternate means is really about providing multiple methods of sources rather than just providing a link. What you can say is, if you're not comfortable going here, you can go directly to our website, and here's how you can find it manually. So self verification, or here's our SSL certificate, so you can actually show it's coming from a verified, trusted, signed source. So really providing multiple means of going to the same information without doing clickbait. Marketers tend to not want to do that because, of course, they lose that source. They lose how people came to that information because it gets around the clickbait side of things where you want to track and you want to understand about where they came from. But at the end of the day, we want them to get to the information. And if we provide multiple means, yes, we might lose that original source or where they came from to get the information. However, at the end of the day, the goal is to get them to the information where they can make educated, wise, smart decisions. So providing means of how they can verify whether the URL or hyperlink or QR code is trusted, we need to show them ways of manually getting to the same place. Eventually, at some point in time, they will put that as a trusted source, as a whether it being adding that as a contact into their email or into their social media, and it becomes a trusted source of information because they do see the educational knowledge and value that the business is providing. But we had to
Mhm,
provide the means of self verification
mm.
and verifying where the source of information is coming from. I get so many of that spam per day, and it takes a lot of my time to go through and verify every single one of them. But the ones that provide just a hyperlink that takes me to uh, a link that redirects me to another link that redirects me to another link, I end up going directly to the URL myself and searching for it rather than trusting that link.
Mhm. Take me through a little bit your journey of researching for a security product. What does it look like?
So what I end up doing is when I'm looking for a security product is that one is I want to see their main message. What's their elevator pitch? And then the next thing what I tend to do is then start looking much more into the details. I look at demonstration videos that they'll have posted. I will start looking at data sheets, technology specifications, um, customer use case stories that they've actually provided. So you start kind of going through all that different verification side of things. And what that helps me do is when you get into the technology piece, it allows you to see, is that main elevator pitch they're providing 100% FUD and distant from what the technology is. The closer they become together, the more trust that vendor earns from me. Is the more reality of what they're really telling the story to what technology they have, that trust elevates up. If basically the fear of FUD is a stretch from what they're really doing technology wise, it raises a lot of flags and questions. So this is really where you kind of that initial point. So once it's enough where I see that the technology is close to the message, then it's allowing me to go to the next phase, which might be is like, oh, let's take a look closer at this. Let's look at more of the installation and deployment capabilities, the integrations. A lot of things is when you see a lot more trusted providers providing integrations, and from both sides. If only the vendor is listing all these companies, and you go to another company who they're listed, and they have no information about that vendor, that's another flag. Is that if you don't have that bi-directional agreement or bi-directional integration, that's another one you kind of question. It means that they're still very early in their stage of validating their technology. So,
Mhm.
and then the next stage is really kind of getting into looking from a technical demonstration perspective. Kind of not entirely reverse engineering things, because of course can be very gray area, but really just looking at when things are being installed, what it's really doing in the background. Um, is it easy to deploy, or is it, is a very heavy lift as well? Will also raise a lot of questions as well. So I go through this, I like ultimately my final thing is to test drive it. I will not use something unless I test drive, demo, practice, and I have to do it myself. If I have to rely on someone else installing something for me, that's another flag. If I have to wait for someone to come in and actually deploy and install software and configure it, um, how am I going to operate and maintain it in the future? How am I going to upgrade it? It becomes overly complex. So this is another thing that you want to be able to do is that today, the thing is security solutions today, they can't have a 6 month shelf life, and I can't depend on third party sources to maintain it for me, unless it's a true MSP approach that I've completely outsourced it, but I still want to have reporting visibility on it. I want to have auditing capabilities of it. I want to be able to control onboarding and offboarding in certain areas. Uh, but the moment I become truly dependent, um, and if that also isn't, let's say, portable, if I'm locked in, one method is one that's really bad practice. I'll use this as a metaphor. If you think about you're going to deploy technology, if I had to change my business to actually make that technology work in my organization, that's also a major flag. If I'm buying a car, and for me to use that car in my city, if I have to build new roads just for that car to work, that's not something the organization is going to do. I would rather get a car that is more kind of, let's say, less features, less costly, but will work in my existing roads. I don't have
Mhm.
to change the way I do business in order for the technology to work. So there's a lot of things you go through, and you want to do those different validations. But ultimately, yeah, there's different levels of how that vendor earns my trust, um, and different criteria that they meet for me to basically start looking at them more closely. But ultimately, the first thing is how far the technology is away from the message. And if that's something that's always the first flag.
Mhm.
If all of a sudden you're seeing, artificial intelligence is always something that I'm looking at. If I go around the vendor booths, and I see artificial intelligence, I go to and I'm asking the question. So, okay, does your product self-install and learn? And do I have to? Is there an interface that I even have to use? I suspect if it's artificial intelligence, I will never ever have to log into it and do anything. It should self-configure itself. And the
Mhm.
moment you walk away from that, and they're like, No, 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 you have to do all these things to get it to work." And for me, okay, what you're really selling me is automation. But you're calling it artificial intelligence just to get on that marketing groovy train. Um, so this is really where you get into how to separate, and there truly is organizations out there that have technology which is getting close. There's certain elements that are getting close to artificial intelligence capable. I kinda call it more autonomous, um, or advanced automation is what I tend to call it, but they are getting there.
Mhm.
But it's important to really try, to make sure that you separate that FUD, that fluff,
Yeah.
that people try to sell. I get more comfortable when people are talking about more about machine learning, or deep data intelligence, and talking about much more reality. And it goes the same with things like zero trust, and you get into zero trust. There's a lot of misunderstandings and misassumptions into you never install zero trust. What you do is you install features that help you get to zero trust operational state. Because
Right.
zero trust is not something you check off as a box. So you end up seeing that, well, What zero trust is really is about, it's a mindset and how you operate your business in a secure way. That's what
Right.
it is. It's all of
Mhm.
it's people, technology, process, and it's about how you operate your business. You can get things that help you achieve zero trust in certain areas or problems in the business, but it's not a checkbox. So organizations who go and say, "We make you zero trust if you install our product," is always far away. And then you also get into 100% protection. We will solve everything for you. Um, we stop ransomware immediately. We eliminate cyber attacks, and you're just like, where are these people coming from? Well, what's the reality is, because there is never 100% protection. It's all about reducing risk. You have to realize that where people go, people plug things in, people click and stuff, people configure things. Where humans go, there's always going to be that risk. And that's what we have to get into, is we have to get into reality, and we have to challenge those statements. We have to challenge them. And that's what people like me should be. Organizations should have someone like me, either internally or externally, they can go to and say, "Here's our message that we're planning to. What's your input into this message?" You know, and it's about, how do we make sure that, okay, yes, you want, and there's no problem with using any of those terms, using artificial intelligence, using zero trust, using things like even passwordless, which sometimes is also a bit of a stretch as well. But it's explaining the context of what you do, how you're using it to help businesses, how you translate that into reducing risk. So it's about how you kind of tailor it to make sure that it's more subtle, that's more specific to what you do in a context way, and that's what definitely people will see through that fear, see through the fluff, and becomes much more reality, much more trust, earning people's trust. Again, it's earning that trust at the beginning that really will allow people to look at it much more kind of thoroughly, and much more hands on, and getting closer to really believing that it is a product for the business, and
Mhm.
product as a checkbox or shelfware. So for me, it's always about really making sure that, yes, and that's why I go and do the buzzword bingo in the halls, is that you ask those questions. We were on the blockchain Groovy chain for a long time as well. Blockchain was a big one. And fortunately enough for me being in Estonia, I've seen blockchain being used in government institutions for a long time. So I knew its capabilities, I knew its limitations. So when people were putting blockchain enabled, you know, zero trust, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, 100% protection, and we'll stop all cyber attacks. Any organization using that type of terminology is you kind of, already lose faith in it, and we really have to get in back into reality, and really, and this is where, as I mentioned, Victoria Baines, who wrote a book recently on this topic, is we have to look at how we can change cybersecurity, and even cybersecurity in the term itself is always it can be misunderstood and misinterpreted. Is how we turn that into how we help the business be successful. And I always
Mhm.
remember years ago, I mean, I've been down this path as well myself, but it's up until a point in time where I get educated and taught about what is, the more I speak with executives and boards, the more I understand about, how I need to communicate effectively with them. There's a difference between me communicating with technical people and me communicating with business people. And in the business, they're always looking at return on investment. How am I helping them be successful? How am I helping employees be successful? How am I helping them do their job? I remember it was a CFO said to me, it was a CFO who actually really changed my mindset, actually made me realize for years I thought my job was security. I was in that FUD. I was in that, self understanding that I'm a security professional and I'm here to make things secure. And that was my mindset. And it was about 5, 6 years ago now. It's getting quite long now, which is good. That it means that it's taking its impact and affecting me in my mindset. But the CFO said that, it's the cost of doing something versus the cost of doing nothing. And what is that cyber gap? And how are you helping me be successful in the business? And what's the return on investment? And it was that moment in time where I realized that actually I this was one of those, I love those lights moments where you get that idea and you're like, I can't believe that I've been going down that path for so long. And now I realize that actually my job is not security. my skills and experience is security, and it's all about how do I use this? How do I use this to help people be successful? And the employees' jobs is not to be secure. Employees' jobs is to do their tasks successfully to help the business be successful. And sometimes it's about me watching and learning and observing employees about how they do their job. And even anything we put in place should not make their job more difficult. It actually should make it better. So when we put security in place for employees, they should actually benefit from it. They should be, another metaphor. I use metaphors all the time, so I apologize. Is if an employee drives to work every day, and all of a sudden you realize that the way they drive to work is not safe. It's not secure. It's a risk to the business. So you go to the employee and say, right, no more driving to work. You have to go and you have to walk 5 minutes to here. You have to get a bus, then you have to cycle, then you have to get a train, and then you get to work because that's the safe way of doing it. That's how we're going to reduce the risk to the business. The employee's going to look at you and go, yeah, but you know, this way it takes me 15 minutes. And now you're telling me I have to spend an hour doing my job doing that way. That makes their job more difficult. It makes them less productive, less efficient. And they're looking at their metrics, and their metrics is about how to do things more efficient, more effectively, and help the business be successful. And what we're doing is we're putting things in place that is actually counterproductive to that. And it makes an employee unhappy because they have all of these different holes and hurdles to jump through. And what really, if we were to sit down and watch and observe and understand and listen to employees, what security could have been is putting basically road bumps and like a slow or a drive, speed limit on the way to work. That actually, yes, it actually would have allowed the employee to be less risk and safer. It might take a little bit more to do it, but you can put things in place that can actually still make that more efficient. But
Mhm.
you're keeping the employee happy, and you're creating less friction, and you're making the employee use security. Because I can guarantee if we were to force that employee down the other path, they would look for ways to circumvent it and look for ways around it, and ultimately could create a bigger risk than the way that they've been doing it in the past. So we have to be better. I think one of the things in our industry, we have to be better listeners to employees and to our customers. We have to spend more time listening to them. And to be honest, a lot of these major security events is going listen to security professionals like myself, and sometimes that's not the best thing. Some of the best things I've learned is listening to the end users, listening to victims of cyber crimes. That's the people that should be up on the stage talking to us. Those who've lost their identity, those who have clicked in phishing scams and went through the process of getting their data back, those who have basically had data breaches. Those are the ones I find when I go to events the most compelling, the ones that's not afraid to speak out and afraid to share their experience. And sometimes that's what, I'm given the opportunity for many organizations that I've helped in the past. They've given me permission to speak in their behalf to tell their story. So I think it's really important that, we as a industry diversify significantly,
Mhm.
and we have to hear from different aspects, and we have to expand and to really understand about what are we here in the first place to do. And it's not security first. All companies, if with marketing teams, they need to reach out to people that similar kind of as myself that do these buzzword bingos and really see through the message. They all should have access to people like myself, and then get them on the teams, get access to them so that they can test the message before they make it public. Because it's harder to retract and change it once it's already out there. And I've seen it in the past, and I've had to go through and get, oh, why did we pick that out there, and go and try to change it and try to modify it. So we've been done that. Organizations I've worked in the past done that. We've done that in the past because sometimes it does slip out. Um, but it's important to make sure the organization reacts and tries to correct it quickly. But
You'll
it's better to do it beforehand than try to do it afterwards, trust me.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But you know what? A challenge for some of us marketers, you'll be surprised how hard it is to get access to customers because there's this block from the customer success team. We don't want to ask too much of the end user and the customer. We're already asking
Mm,
them to, do XYZ and do a testimonial. And I just want a 15-minute conversation to understand a little bit, what works for them, what ticks, what doesn't.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? And is that a stigma or a stereotype that we're asking too much of you all?
Well, definitely 15 minutes is a lot of time. Um, like even I get people going 5, 10 minutes, but it's never 5, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's just, that's just to kind of to get you to open your door. And for people to kind of do this quick pitches. Before you can get there, you have to earn the trust. You have to have something of
But
value. That's
but
the key thing is that in that initial communication, there has to be something for both. That is and whether it being knowledge, because what I feed on is knowledge. Uh,
mhm,
you know, giving so for example, just simple things is getting access to educational resources. One thing that I will queue at an event is for a book. If I go to a conference and I see there's a book of value, that is really interesting, I will queue for that. I won't queue for a T-shirt, but I will queue for a book. So if you have things of knowledge and value that can open those doors, that's one of the key things. Is that how and that's one of the things that I've done is I've wrote several books that is all of and it's purely educational, and that's what opens the doors. That's what people and it's more about here's something of knowledge when you have these questions, I'm here to answer and have that direct feedback. So it's also the reverse situation where I'm not reaching out to people. What I'm doing is providing something of knowledge. And when they have the time, my door's open for them to come. So
mhm.
it's a case of making sure and that it is the long-term kind of approach. Um uh so going to do that kind of fire kind of round one, you're basically trying to reach out to so many people and get their response is it has to be a long-term strategy into how you build that up.
Many of us need to get more comfortable with long-term strategy. I mean, we're all under pressure to get results quick, so I always say pair the long-term strategy, but you're gonna see more exponential growth once you start hitting that cadence and that point of return, versus slower incremental growth.
It's definitely a balance between, taking multiple tactics, don't just rely on one, but take multiple tactics and also multiple levels as well.
Yeah.
It's important to kind of look at this from a short term. Some businesses have to do that short term goals and metrics in order to meet, but it's important to also have a balance between the long term as well.
Yeah.
Because you can't that short term strategy is stressful. It burns
Mhm.
people out from both from every angle. And you end up with a big red face and a palm in your face all the time. So it's definitely a balanced
Mhm.
approach, and having something of more strategic, and going that value based approach as well
Yeah.
is much more. Uh, it builds reputation, a better reputation, than basically you get from. I mean, I do get lots of emails from vendors, and you look at it, and you can see the difference between how people email and the tactics they use, and you see certain vendors just taking that same tactic all the time, and you're like, "How does this even work?" And
Yeah.
maybe you might get okay one out of nine responding, but for those who actually take the time and do the value based approach, um, they'll get more responses from me, and more
Mhm.
responses from the people that makes the difference. That is the decision makers, that is influencers in the business. You
Mhm.
get to the right people when you use the right approach, but that one person that you might be successful is not the right person for you potentially. So you might end up wasting your time as well.
I wanna have a little bit of fun now. I mean, this was all fun, but let's get a little bit provocative here with the shit list quickfire.
Uh,
I'm creating an anonymous shit list to understand what are some of the worst things practitioners have experienced from vendors. So what's that one worst thing you've experienced that a vendor's done to you?
um, I mean, it comes into some of the poor email, messages that and the terms of words that they use in those messages, like where they start, they send one email, and the end up might be a series of 5 or 6 emails that you get, And this really starts to frustrate me because they start actually turning on you in the email threads. So the first thing is, can I get 10 minutes of your time? Because I've got something of value to provide. I want to explain how we're providing this, artificial intelligence, machine learning, zero trust, solution. And so without providing just any context or any problem being solved, they're selling technology and not solving a problem. And then very quickly, if you don't respond within a day or two, all of a sudden they start saying, "Okay, was it? I guess was it? They start saying, you're too busy, or they're like start blaming you for not giving them your time, and that really gets frustrating because they start becoming nasty in the communication to you to try and make you feel bad. And I think that's definitely, it's going back into that one thing that I mentioned earlier about this whole thing, that the one thing I hate in our industry is bullying and fear and putting other people down, and using that in your kind of marketing tactics is, what you're doing is you're doing psychology. You're using fear and you're making people feel bad so that they can contact you to get 10 minutes of your time. That is for me is the worst tactics ever. And it really, it angers me that people
Mhm,
use those techniques. Because ultimately it's my time which is valuable. Uh,
mhm.
and to try and make me feel bad by not giving a person who hasn't pulled any trust up at any time is the wrong thing to do. And there's some large vendors who take that tactics. Um, and I think that they should really hard look at themselves. Um, I think it'd be good to start having a way of reporting it. Uh,
Mm.
Not so much, one is reporting it back to the vendors to say, like we do with vulnerabilities. Here's your marketing techniques. Is this something you're comfortable with doing? Maybe there's this disconnect between the management team and those who are doing the campaigns. Maybe there's no communication there. Maybe people's left to do their own types of messages. So I think it's important, almost like a kind of was it the vulnerability kind of reporting system, but for marketing campaigns.
If you would like to report that to me, privately, I've actually reached out to competitors of mine and other vendors who have been way off, like, way off in their outreach, not just to me, but to other buyers, and have politely called them out. So feel free to shoot that over to me, and I'm happy to reach out to them because I do think that, 1, it is unfair to you all, but I also think that there are second chances, and those who have approached in maybe an unethical way or the wrong way should learn how to do it the right way. So I'm happy to reach out to them as well and help them,
I think
get
that's
the feedback.
you're absolutely right. I think this is important to provide feedbacks to the organizations so
Yeah,
they can correct it. And that's one thing,
yeah.
I've had as well. If I can tell you, I've done this for a long time, and of course, there's been organizations I work with that yes, we have sent out the message, and it hasn't been really properly vetted by people like myself, and therefore we had to do that course correction. But it's better for us to have people directly feedback. And even I remember in the past, Chris came to me and said he saw something on a message and said, "What the hell?" And I'm like, "Thank you. It will be fixed." And we fixed it. And that's where you get that opportunity is that but you had to have that feedback loop. You have to have the ability
Mhm,
to do that course correction. And the
mhm.
cost for the business to make those changes. For me, it's important to have, you know, people like Chris in our lives who's always direct and honest, and others, and Alan, and everyone I work with, and as peers. That's important for them to have a channel to provide that direct feedback, and be
Mm,
able to give organizations the ability to look at that and say, is that something that we're comfortable with or not, and change the direction, change the course, and come up with something that's much more less
meaningful.
FUD, less fear, and more value.
Yeah,
Because we need security industry to have a image change that we're here to solve problems. We're not here to scare you into buying something that ultimately you may never use.
Mhm.
Um, we have to separate ourselves from the likes of the insurance industry and the financial side of things, where they always fear you into to getting something that is overpriced and over kind of valued. And we have to change the security industry being more value driven,
Mhm.
or kind of business focused and people focused than it
Mhm.
is on the other side. And that's where,
Mhm.
that's where the buzzword bingo comes in. It's it's a fun game. It's always interesting what you see, and then of course, yeah, when there's a new buzzword comes out, and I'm still waiting for this year one. I think it's this year one's probably cyber war. Is going to be the kind of main one that we'll see. We're definitely in the information war today. Cyber war's a bit of a stretch, but we're
Mhm.
definitely in the information war. But you'll see companies using cyber war tactics.
Is there a repository of those buzzwords or that we could all take a look at, or is that stored somewhere,
I think it's
or it's
looking.
all
For me, it just comes into when you hit, the trends coming through. Probably
yeah,
the Gartner hype quadrant or hype trends is sometimes you use that as a baseline for the buzzwords. So their hype trend chart that they have. But it just comes down to more of what the common message you'll see, companies come out with.
yeah,
It's I'm still waiting to see this year's one. The last couple of years has mostly been driven by the pandemic
yeah,
side of things, but it'd be interesting to see what this year's takes us. I guess RSA and Black Hat and other major conferences will start saying what's the most common word that's used from vendors from their booth kind of messaging. Will be the
mhm.
one that kind of determines that.
Let's flip it on its head. I like to end off on a very positive note. What's one thing a vendor has done that made you feel really good?
I think we are improving. I mean, I have to tell you that over the past probably 10 years that I mean, myself and Chris and others, we do these conferences every year and year, and you'll always get one that kind of is really stretching the message. Uh, but we are improving. We are getting better. People are listening. Organizations are listening. They're changing the marketing messaging. So it is a slow trend, and you'll get a lot of smaller companies who kind of like are just trying to catch up and mature. The
Mhm.
message is changing and it is evolving, is getting better. I think the one thing for me, that is the positive note from vendors is really kind of just making it much more of a polite and way of communicating, making me feel that they're providing value and education rather than trying to sell me something. They're teaching me something. The most valuable thing in our world is time. I have limited amount of time. You have limited amount of time. Everyone on this earth, the most valuable asset that we all have is time. And the thing that we do the most kind of is the most we use our time the best we possibly can is how we live our lives to the fullest. So yes, as I mentioned, me wasting my 10 minutes and 15 minutes with like multiple vendors is a waste of my time. I should be using that to fulfill as much as possible. But vendors should provide me with resources of knowledge. That is where I can actually make a decision of whether I will actually learn something of value that helps me with my job, that actually helps me be successful. So for vendors out there, don't try to waste my time. Try to make me more knowledgeable. Create content that educates me and educates me in where I can decide how to use my time.
Mhm.
Um, Podcasts are great because it allows me to do multiple tasks. I can listen while I actually do other things. And that's why, podcasts is a great way it teaching and sharing knowledge. But yeah, the most valuable thing you can do for me is educate me, but don't try to get 10, 15 minutes of my time, because that's wasting it. Um,
Yeah.
and that's, I think the more vendors that get out there and the more vendors that are sharing educational knowledge, that is not product centric. It's not selling. It's giving me knowledge in a specific area. That's where basically value is added. If it's basically educational, not product, educational. If I can do that in my drive home in the evening or my walk home in the evening, um, that I can decide, well, okay, now I have the time to do that. I will spend the time to read, to listen, and think about the medium of how to do that as well, whether it being an article, whether it being
Mhm.
a book or a paper or a podcast or something audio, or
Yep.
video. Think about the medium in order to deliver that to your audience. Time is the most valuable asset. Let me decide when my time can be used for your resources and assets.
I love that. This has been so helpful and insightful. You've already imparted so much wisdom to me and to the audience. Anything else you want to say to us before we sign off?
For all marketers out there, get your network sorted and having access to security researchers who can help you get the message right. Make sure you validate and verify it before it goes out, and make sure you do research on the audience before you send it to them. Don't just, send things out basically unvalidated, unverified. Get the right people to check it. That's the most crucial thing. Is more people like me
Mhm.
in your business. So, will definitely make your organizations more value driven and less wasting people's time.
Joseph, thank you so much for your time today. I'd love to have you back on.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure, and for everyone out there, stay safe and learn as much as you can, because that's what we're here to do is fulfill our lives the best.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Audience First. If you like what you've heard, feel free to follow or subscribe to Audience First on Apple, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast streamers.